The northern lands of Lunaris were ruled not just by kings and queens, but by the moon. It hung heavy in the sky, pale and distant, casting silver light over forests, rivers, and the snow-covered mountains. Wolves of the royal packs roamed these lands, their fur shining like silver in the moonlight. Yet among them, some were born differently. Wolves born white, albino, were called cursed. People whispered that the moon itself had abandoned them. Leora was one of them. Her skin was pale as frost, her hair almost transparent in the sunlight, and her eyes glowed red like rubies in darkness. She had been born into a world that feared her, a pack that mocked her, and a destiny that seemed crueler than death itself. She moved quietly among the trees at the edge of the training ground, watching the young warriors run and leap. Her presence was like air to them, noticeable but not worth kindness. A few laughed at her, calling her names she had heard since she could speak. She did not answer. Leora had learned long ago that silence often hurt worse than words. Today was worse than most. A group of young warriors had gathered, not to train but to torment her. One of them held a small pouch, powder spilling from its seams. "Watch this," he sneered, throwing the contents onto Leora's pale coat. She gasped as the Wolfsbane touched her skin. It burned like fire through her veins, scorching her every nerve. Her hands trembled as she sank to her knees, but she did not cry out. That would have been their victory. The young wolves laughed, thinking her stillness was weakness. "Not moving, eh?" One of them jeered. "Are you even alive, ghost girl?" Leora's lips were dry. Her heart raced and her vision blurred. She could feel the poison crawling through her blood, threatening to steal her breath. But even as pain racked her body, a strange calm washed over her. Something deep within her stirred, a quiet, steady flame that refused to die. She thought of the moon above, its silver gaze indifferent yet familiar. From the shadows, a tall figure watched silently. His presence was like a storm held in check, powerful, dangerous, and commanding. Cale Draven, the Alpha King of Lunaris, had been alerted by something only a ruler like him could feel. A thread of suffering pulled at his very soul. The Alpha stepped from the trees, his boots silent against the frozen earth. His cloak flowed behind him like liquid night. The young warriors froze when they saw him. His eyes, dark as midnight, scanned the scene and landed on Leora. "She's yours to harm?" His voice was low like rolling thunder. "No, Alpha," one of the boys stammered. We were just—" Cale's gaze did not waver. "Step back." His words were not a suggestion. The young wolves scurried away, leaving Leora crumpled on the ground. The poison had made her pale skin even paler, almost glowing under the moonlight. Cale knelt beside her, his eyes searching her face. He felt her pain as if it were his own, each heartbeat like a drum of warning. The air around him seemed to hum with energy, the ancient bond of the Alpha's bloodline, linking him to every wolf under his command. He had felt countless lives in danger, but this was different, Leora, he said gently, placing his hand over her chest. His touch was firm yet strangely tender. She shivered at the warmth spreading from him. The poison hissed in her veins, but under his hands it seemed to falter. Her red eyes fluttered open, meeting his. Fear and pain mingled with something else, curiosity, awe, and a tiny spark of hope she had never felt before. "You're alive," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "I am here," Cale replied, his tone steady. "And I will not let you die." The night wind howled through the forest, but it carried no sound that could disturb them. Only the two of them existed in that frozen world, two souls connected by fate, even if neither understood it yet. Hours passed. Cale guided her to a small alcove among the trees, using his strength to lift her fragile body. He could feel the poison weakening her, seeping through her veins, but his presence seemed to shield her, slowing the damage. His mind was sharp, every thought focused on one thing: saving her. Leora tried to speak, tried to push him away, but her body was too weak.
Why are you helping me?"
she asked, fear and disbelief mingling in her voice. "Because you are not cursed," Kyle said, his eyes burning into hers. "You are chosen. The moon itself calls to you." Her chest tightened. No one had ever said anything like that to her. The words felt impossible, yet somehow they rang true. Could she really be more than a mistake? More than the shame of the pack? The cold night deepened and the forest seemed to lean closer, listening. Cale lifted her carefully and carried her across the snow to the nearest refuge. an ancient tower he used for emergencies. Its walls were black stone and moonlight danced along the edges, making it seem almost alive. Inside, he laid her gently on a bed of furs. Leora shivered violently, her small body racked by fever and pain. Cale knelt beside her, watching every rise and fall of her chest. He could feel her thoughts, fragmented and raw like shards of broken glass, and yet beneath all the fear there was resilience, a strength that dared to resist even death. "I will not leave you," he said again. His voice was a vow, a command to the universe itself. The air seemed to thrum with power, responding to his words. The wolves of the forest might fear her, the humans might scorn her, but he would not. As the night wore on, the poison began to retreat. Slowly, painfully, Leora's body stopped trembling. Her red eyes met Cale's once more, and she saw something she had never seen in any human or wolf before. Respect, protection, and a hint of something dangerous, something she could not name. "You saved me," she whispered again, disbelief still trembling in her voice. "No," Kyle said, shaking his head. "It is not I who saved you. You have saved yourself simply by surviving. The moon saw it. And now, so have I." The two sat in silence for a moment, the cold wind outside howling through the cracks of the tower, carrying with it a faint promise of power, of destiny, of change. Neither spoke, for words could not capture the gravity of the moment. Then a sound, soft yet impossible to ignore. From somewhere deep in the forest, a howl rose. It was long, mournful, and beautiful. Cale's eyes narrowed. Leora turned her head weakly, sensing the same call. "The moon speaks tonight," Cale said, his voice quiet but steady. "And it has chosen you." Leora's heart pounded. She had always known she was different. She had always felt the loneliness of the albino, the whispered curses, the cruel laughter of those who hated her. But now she was part of something larger, something she could not yet understand. Her lips trembled. I don't understand." Cale's gaze softened, but it did not lose its intensity. "You will. One day, you will understand. But for now, rest. The night is long, and the moon waits." Outside the tower, the moon climbed higher, casting its pale light over the frozen forest. For the first time in her life, Leora felt that she belonged somewhere. And for the first time, Cale felt something stir within him. A connection he had not expected. A pull so strong it was almost unbearable. But even as the wind whispered through the tower, carrying the cries of distant wolves, neither could know that this night was only the beginning, that the paths they were about to walk would be dangerous, filled with fear, hatred, and impossible choices. That the moon had only begun to test them both, and that the albino Omega, who had been thrown into fire and pain, would soon discover that the world she feared might also be the world that would claim her heart, and the heart of the Alpha King. The night stretched on, silent except for the occasional distant howl. Leora drifted into a restless sleep, her mind full of strange visions of light, silver fur, and a figure standing beside her in the moonlight. Cale watched over her, his hand resting lightly on the furs beside her, his mind unable to stop the questions that gnawed at him. Who was she, really? And why had the moon itself chosen her? The answers would come. But not tonight. For now there was only the cold, the silence, and the bond that had begun, fragile, unspoken, and inevitable, cliffhanger ending. In the quiet of the tower, the moonlight shifted, and for a brief moment, Leora's eyes glowed brighter than ever. Cale leaned closer, sensing it, the power within her, the magic of the moon, and a destiny that could not be denied. "What are you?" he whispered, and the night seemed to hold its breath in reply. The sun rose pale and cold over the lands of Lunaris. Its light touched the black stone walls of Cale Draven's fortress, but inside the halls were silent and heavy with whispers. Word had spread through the pack overnight. The Alpha King had saved the albino Omega. Some feared her. Others laughed at her. And still others wondered, quietly and with awe, why the king had chosen her. Leora sat on a small wooden bench in the corner of the great hall, wrapped in a thick wool cloak that smelled faintly of pine and smoke. She had slept most of the night under Cale's watchful eye, her body slowly healing from the Wolfsbane. Her hands still trembled, her limbs felt weak, and every breath carried the memory of the burning poison. But for the first time in her life, she felt safe. The heavy wooden doors creaked as they opened. Kale entered, tall and commanding, his cloak brushing the stone floor. His dark hair fell over his forehead, shadowing eyes that seemed deeper than the night sky. He moved with a quiet power that could make even the bravest warrior bow without a word. "Your injuries are healing," he said simply, his gaze fixed on her. "The poison was strong. I do not know how you survived so long. I don't know either." Leora whispered, her voice soft, almost afraid to break the stillness. She lifted her trembling hands to her face. "It burned everything inside me. I thought." Her words faltered. She could not say she thought she would die. She could not say she had longed for it, even though a small part of her had wanted the pain to end. Kale knelt before her, as if lowering himself to her world, instead of asking her to rise to his. "The moon watches over those who are chosen," he said, his voice low and steady. "You are not cursed. You are marked. The moon called to me when you were in danger. That is why I came." Leora's red eyes widened. She had heard tales of the moon's magic, but never had she imagined that she herself could be part of it. "Marked?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why me? I'm nothing. I'm just Albino." Kale's gaze hardened, and yet there was a tenderness that softened his expression. "You are not nothing. You are the bridge between what the moon has left behind and the world that fears it. One day you will understand." The hall grew colder as they spoke. Outside, the wind cut through the mountains carrying snow and frost. Leora pulled her cloak tighter around herself. "One day," she repeated, almost to convince herself. I hope I can." Kale rose slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. "You will not be alone," he said, as if making a vow to the walls themselves. "I will not let you be alone." The silence stretched for a moment before the doors to the hall opened again. A group of nobles entered, their expressions tight, their eyes darting between Leora and Kale. Among them, Corin, the Beta General, walked with a confident swagger. His dark hair was pulled back, his sharp eyes calculating and cold. "Your Majesty," Corin began, bowing slightly but not lowering his gaze. "It seems unusual that you have taken this Albino Omega under your protection. The people will speak." Kale's eyes narrowed. "And what will they speak? That I save a life?" His voice held a dangerous calm. "Or that you fear a girl because she is different?" Corin hesitated, realizing the weight behind Kale's words. "They will call it a mistake. A distraction. The bloodline must remain strong, Alpha. You cannot be distracted by someone so weak, so cursed." Leora's hands clenched under her cloak. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but fear and exhaustion held her back. Kale noticed her trembling and placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. The touch was gentle, yet it anchored her, gave her courage. "You speak of weakness," Kyle said, his voice rising slightly. "But she has survived what none of you could endure. That is strength. That is courage, and I will not hear any more disrespect toward her." Corin's lips tightened, but he said nothing. The other nobles shifted uneasily. Even they could feel the power radiating from Kyle. Not the power of strength alone, but the authority of one who knew destiny. When the nobles had left, Kale turned to Leora. "Do you understand what just happened?" he asked softly. She nodded slowly. They do not want me here. They are afraid." Kale's eyes softened. "Good, let them be afraid. Let them fear what they cannot control. You belong here with me whether they like it or not." For the first time, Leora felt a strange warmth in her chest. She wanted to ask why he cared so much, why he had come for her, why he had risked angering everyone to save her, but the words stuck in her throat. She had never spoken to anyone like this before, never had someone speak to her as though she mattered. Hours passed. Kale guided her through the fortress, showing her the rooms she would stay in, the gardens she could walk in, and the library where ancient scrolls lay untouched. Leora listened and watched, absorbing every detail. For the first time, she saw that the world was larger than fear and cruelty. It was full of power and magic and possibility. That evening, Kale led her to a small balcony overlooking the northern forest. The moon hung low, casting silver light over the snowy trees. Leora shivered, not from cold, but from the beauty of the world she had never allowed herself to see. "The moon is beautiful tonight," Kale said softly, standing beside her. "Do you see it?" She nodded, her eyes reflecting the silver glow. "It is peaceful." Kyle's gaze turned to her. The moon has chosen you for a reason. You are more than a victim, more than the pack's shame. You are the future, if you are willing to claim it. Leora swallowed hard. The weight of his words pressed on her heart. Could she really be more than what she had always believed? Could she really step into a life where she mattered? Where she was powerful, where she was seen? The wind whispered through the trees, carrying voices from the distant mountains. A pack of wolves howled in unison. A mournful, beautiful sound that seemed to reach into her very soul. She felt something stir within her. A thread of power, faint and tentative but undeniable. Cale noticed the change in her posture, the light in her eyes. He knew without words that the bond had begun. The bond between the Alpha and the moon-chosen Omega. A bond that could change the fate of the entire kingdom. You feel it, don't you? Cale asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Leora nodded, her fingers trembling as she reached toward the moonlight. I think so. Something is calling me. Cale placed a hand over hers. The contact was warm and grounding. Do not fear it, he said. The moon does not call the weak. It calls those who can bear its light. And you, Leora, you are strong. The cold night deepened and shadows stretched across the balcony. For a moment neither moved. The world seemed suspended, holding its breath as if awaiting a sign. A spark. A beginning. Then from the forest below, a figure appeared. Tall, cloaked in shadows, moving with grace and silence. Leora gasped, recognizing the outline of a wolf, larger and more powerful than any she had ever seen. Its eyes glowed with a strange light, like fire and moonlight combined. Kyle's hand tightened around hers. You are not alone, he said. They are watching. The pack, the forest, the moon itself. They are waiting to see what you will do next. Her heart raced. Fear, excitement, and a strange sense of destiny filled her at once. She had been nothing, overlooked, humiliated, and feared. And yet now, she was here, standing beside the Alpha King, chosen by the moon, and watched by forces she could not yet understand. She began, then stopped, unsure what words could describe the storm inside her. Cale tilted his head, his eyes steady and unwavering. You do not need words yet. Just trust yourself. Trust the moon, trust me. For the first time in her life, Leora believed that she could. The howl rose again, louder this time, echoing through the mountains, through the fortress, through the night itself. The sound was both warning and promise. The world was about to change, and Leora, the Albino Omega who had been thrown into fire and pain, stood ready, trembling, afraid, but unbroken. Cliffhanger ending. The moonlight shifted, casting silver across the balcony. Leora felt the power within her pulse, strong and fierce. Kyle watched her, his eyes dark and unreadable. Tomorrow, he said, voice steady but full of weight, they will see you, and nothing will ever be the same. The morning sun barely pierced the thick fog that hung over Lunaris. The fortress seemed even colder now, the black stones absorbing the chill. Inside, whispers moved like shadows across the halls. The news of Cale Draven's choice and of Leora, the Albino Omega, as someone he protected, had traveled faster than wind. Some feared her. Others plotted against her. Many simply stared in awe. Leora sat by a frost-covered window watching snowflakes swirl like dancing spirits in the morning light. Her fingers traced the edge of the windowsill, and her red eyes reflected both wonder and worry. Each day brought new lessons, new challenges. She was healing from the Wolfsbane, but the memory of that burning pain lingered in her veins, reminding her that her life had been fragile, until Cale had chosen otherwise. The door creaked open and Cale entered, his presence filling the small room. He moved with quiet strength, his dark eyes scanning her face as if he could read every thought, every fear. You have grown stronger overnight, he said. His voice calm but edged with the authority that made others bow in silence. The poison could have claimed you, yet here you are. Your body is healing, but your spirit, it is even stronger than I imagined. Leora looked at him, uncertainty and wonder mingling in her gaze. I am still afraid, she admitted. They will not let this go. The pack, the nobles, they will hate me for being here. For surviving, for existing. Cale's lips pressed into a thin line. Let them hate, he said firmly. You belong here, not because I say so, but because you were chosen. The moon sees what the eyes of men and wolves cannot. You are part of something greater, and they will learn it, whether they want to or not. The tension in the room was broken only by the soft whisper of wind against the stone walls. Leora's hands trembled slightly as she absorbed his words. The truth in them was undeniable yet frightening. She had never been wanted, never been seen, never been told that she had a purpose beyond surviving cruelty. Now she had a path, but the path was shadowed with danger. The first challenge came sooner than she expected. The council of nobles assembled in the grand hall that morning, their expressions a mixture of anger and curiosity. Corin, the beta general, led them, his eyes calculating and cold. He stepped forward with deliberate grace, bowing slightly but keeping his gaze fixed on Kale. "Your Majesty," he said, his tone smooth but edged with challenge. "We must speak of the Albino Omega. Her presence here disrupts tradition and order. The people will question your judgment. The bloodline must remain untainted, Alpha. This creature cannot remain under your protection without consequence." Leora stiffened at the word creature, but Kale's hand brushed her shoulder, a silent reassurance. His dark gaze swept the council like a storm. "She is not a creature," he said sharply. "She is Leora, and she is alive. You will not speak of her in such terms again." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Some of the nobles looked away, ashamed. Others clenched their fists, anger simmering beneath polite smiles. Corin's lips tightened, but he said nothing more. Kale's presence was a wall none could pass without consequence. When the council adjourned, Kale turned to Leora. "Do you see?" he asked softly. "They fear what they cannot control. But you have power they cannot touch, power they do not understand." Leora swallowed hard, her chest tight with uncertainty. "Power?" she whispered. I do not feel powerful. I feel small, weak." Kyle shook his head, kneeling to meet her eyes. "The moon does not choose the weak. It chooses those who endure, those who survive when all else fails. You are marked, Leora. The seal of the Luna will awaken within you, and when it does, you will understand the strength that has always been inside you." Leora's eyes widened. The idea of a seal frightened and intrigued her. "A seal?" she asked. What is it?" "It is a mark of destiny," Kale replied, his voice low and steady. "It binds the chosen to the moon, granting strength, insight, and purpose. You carry it already, though faintly. It will grow with you, if you choose to embrace it." For a moment, Leora's mind swirled with possibilities. She had spent her life hiding, fleeing, and surviving. Now she was being told that her existence had meaning, that she had a path, and that the Alpha King himself was guiding her. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her, yet a spark of hope flared in her heart. The days that followed were filled with lessons. Kale guided her in the ways of the fortress, showing her hidden corridors, secret rooms, and ancient scrolls that spoke of the moon and its magic. He taught her the history of Lunaris, of the Alpha line, and of the sacred bond between an Alpha and a Luna. Through it all, Leora grew stronger. Her body healed, her mind sharpened, and her connection to the moon became more apparent. Sometimes she could feel whispers in the wind, guiding her, urging her forward. Other times she saw glimpses of silver light in her reflection, strange and beautiful, almost like the moon itself was alive within her. But with growth came danger. Rumors of the moon-chosen Omega spread beyond the fortress. Other packs, jealous or fearful, began to stir. And within Kale's court, not all eyes were friendly. Corin and his followers watched her every move, waiting for a misstep, a sign of weakness they could exploit. One evening, as the sky darkened and the first stars appeared, Kale led Leora to the training grounds. The snow crunched beneath their feet, the air sharp and cold. Wolves watched from the shadows, their eyes gleaming like amber lanterns. "You must learn to control the power inside you," Kyle said, stopping in the center of the yard. "The seal is awakening. You will feel its fire, its pull. Do not fear it. Embrace it. Let it guide you." Leora nodded, her fingers trembling as she clenched them into fists. I will try," she whispered. Kale stepped back, giving her space. "Good. The moon test is chosen. You are about to be tested as well." She closed her eyes, drawing in the cold, crisp air. A warmth began to stir in her chest, soft at first, then growing stronger, spreading through her veins. It was as if the moonlight itself had entered her body, filling her with energy she had never known. Suddenly a howl split the night, not distant but close, urgent. Leora's eyes snapped open. From the shadows, a pack of rogue wolves emerged, their eyes glowing red in the silver light. They were large, fierce, and clearly sent to challenge her. Kale's stance shifted, protective and commanding. Stay close, he warned. Do not let fear guide you. Trust the moon, trust yourself. Leora's heart raced. She had never faced such danger. But then she remembered his words, the strength he had seen in her, the fire within her that refused to be extinguished. Drawing on the power coursing through her, she stepped forward. The rogue wolves halted, sensing something different, something beyond their understanding. Silver light shimmered around her, faint at first, then brighter, almost like a halo in the snow. The largest wolf growled, stepping closer. But Leora did not back down. Instead, she lifted her hands, feeling the energy pulse outward. The air shimmered, the snow swirled, and the rogue wolves froze, their eyes wide with shock and fear. Cale watched, a mixture of awe and pride in his gaze. Good, he whispered. Do not be afraid. You are the moon's chosen. Let them see it. The wolves backed away, slowly at first, then fled into the shadows, leaving Leora standing alone in the snow, trembling but unbroken. She looked at Cale, her chest heaving, and saw a rare smile tug at the corner of his lips. You did it, he said, his voice soft. You faced them, and you did not falter. The moon shines through you. Remember this strength, and it is yours always. Leora's lips curved into a small, hesitant smile. For the first time, she did not feel like the albino Omega who had been thrown into fire and pain. She felt powerful, capable, and seen. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the echoes of the wolves' howls. The moon shone brighter than ever, reflecting in her red eyes. Cale placed a hand on her shoulder again, steadying, grounding, and somehow comforting her. You are ready, he said, but the world will test you still. Not everyone will accept what you are, who you are, and some will try to take it from you. Leora nodded, determination hardening within her. She had survived cruelty, poison, and fear. She had faced the world that rejected her and had stood tall. Now, with Cale at her side, she would face whatever came next. Cliffhanger ending. From the shadows of the forest, unseen eyes watched. A figure stepped forward, cloaked in darkness, a faint smile touching their lips. So the moon has truly chosen her, they whispered. And the Alpha King has no idea what storms he has invited. The winds of Lunaris howled like restless spirits that day. The snow-covered forests were silent yet heavy with anticipation, as though the land itself sensed the coming storm. Inside the fortress, tension hung thick in the air. Cale Draven moved through the halls with purposeful steps, his dark cloak brushing the stone floors. His mind was focused, but shadows of worry clouded his eyes. The news of the Albino Omega's power and survival had reached far beyond the fortress walls. Other packs, jealous and fearful of the moon's choice, were mobilizing. Whispers of rebellion and treachery filled the air. Among Cale's council, not everyone approved of Leora's presence, and some plotted to use her against him. Leora stood by the great window in her room, her red eyes fixed on the horizon. The morning sun was weak, struggling to pierce the clouds that hung low like heavy velvet. She had been training with Cale every day, learning to control the faint light of the moon that pulsed through her veins. The seal of the Luna had begun to awaken fully, and with it her senses sharpened, her strength grew, and whispers of the moon guided her thoughts. Yet today, unease gnawed at her. She could feel it in the air, a darkness coming, not natural, not ordinary. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the snow still beneath the steps of something approaching. Cale, she said softly, her voice trembling despite her courage. Something is coming. I can feel it. Cale entered without a sound, his presence strong and protective. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her trembling. I know, he said quietly. The opposition grows bolder. Corin and his followers will not rest until they see you removed, until they see me weakened. Leora's heart tightened. I cannot let them hurt anyone, she whispered. Not the pack, not you. Not anyone. Cale's gaze softened, yet his voice remained firm. You are not alone in this. Whatever comes, we face it together, but you must trust in the moon and in yourself, the power within you. It is real. It is stronger than fear, stronger than hate, and it is your shield. As the day waned, distant howls reached the fortress. Wolves from rival packs were gathering. Cale's warriors prepared for battle, their eyes sharp, muscles tense. Leora watched from the balcony as her new family, her pack, assembled under the cold light of the moon, ready to defend their alpha and their future Luna. Then, without warning, the attack began. Rogue wolves, led by Corin, charged through the forest, their eyes glinting with malice. They moved with precision and power, a coordinated strike meant to overwhelm. Kyle roared, his voice carrying authority and fury as he led his warriors into battle. Leora's hands trembled, but she could feel the moon pulsing within her, urging her to stand, to fight, to protect. Kale's warriors clashed with the intruders, snow flying, claws and teeth meeting in fierce skirmishes. Leora's heart pounded as she watched the chaos unfold. She could feel the energy in the air, the battle of wills, the power struggling to find balance. She knew that she could not remain a spectator. "Kyle," she called, her voice cutting through the noise. I can help." He glanced at her, eyes wide with concern. "Be careful," he warned. "Control the power or it will control you." Leora took a deep breath, closing her eyes, and allowed the moon's light to fill her. The warmth spread from her chest, flowing into her arms and legs, strengthening her, sharpening her senses. Her red eyes glowed faintly as silver light shimmered across the balcony. When she opened her eyes, the rogue wolves froze, their instincts sensing the power that now radiated from her. The largest wolf, Corin's personal guardian, stepped forward growling, but the silver light of the moon pulsed stronger, almost as if it pushed the darkness away. Kale fought fiercely in the center of the yard, but then a surge of rogue wolves broke through his line. In the chaos he was struck, claws and teeth tearing at his armor. Pain shot through his body and he stumbled. The world seemed to tilt. Leora's heart leapt into her throat. "Kyle!" she shouted, feeling fear and anger surge together. She stepped forward, the moon's power coiling through her like fire. Silver energy radiated outward, a pulse so bright that the rogue wolves yelped and backed away. Snow swirled, lifted by the force of her awakening, sparkling like stars in the cold night. She reached Kale just as he fell to his knees, blood staining his dark cloak. Her hands glowed with the moon's energy, and she pressed them against his chest. A warmth, fierce and tender, spread through him. His breathing steadied, the pain lessened as though the moon itself was healing him. Kyle's dark eyes opened, meeting hers, and a flicker of awe passed across his face. "Leora," he whispered, his voice hoarse but alive. You saved me." Leora felt a tear slip down her cheek. I will not lose you," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Not now, not ever." The rogue wolves, sensing their leader's power faltering and the overwhelming force radiating from Leora, began to retreat. Corin's eyes blazed with fury and fear, realizing that the albino Omega was not only alive but more powerful than they had ever imagined. But victory came at a cost. Kale's injuries were serious. Though she had healed him partially with the moon's energy, he still leaned heavily on her, his strength not fully restored. Leora's heart ached as she saw him falter, as though the battle had tested more than her own courage. "You were incredible," Kyle said, voice low but filled with admiration. "The moon chose well. You are more than I imagined. Leora began, unsure how to express what she felt. "I am nothing without you." Without your guidance, Kale shook his head gently. "No," he said firmly. "You are not nothing. You are strong, brave, and chosen. I merely guided you. The strength, it is yours always. Remember that." As the night deepened, the fortress healed from the battle. Injured wolves were tended, wounds bandaged, and defenses reinforced. Leora sat by Kale's side, refusing to leave him, refusing to let fear or doubt touch either of them. Then, when the halls had quieted, a whisper reached her ears. Faint, soft, but unmistakable, something ancient, something calling her. "The moon," she breathed. Her red eyes glimmered in the dim candlelight. "It is calling again." Kyle noticed the change immediately. "The seal is growing stronger," he said, concern and awe mingling in his voice. "You will need to be careful. Every time it awakens further, the power attracts attention, both friend and foe. And there are those who would use it, or destroy it." Leora nodded, a strange calm settling over her. Fear lingered, yes, but so did determination. She had survived poison, mockery, and death. She had awakened the moon's power, and she had saved Kale, the Alpha King, from harm. "I will not let them take it from me," she said softly. I will protect you, protect the pack, protect what we have." Kale's hand covered hers, steadying her trembling fingers. "And I will protect you," he said, voice low but unwavering. "No matter the cost, I will not let you fall." The moon shone brighter that night, silver light spilling through the windows, casting long shadows on the stone floors. Outside, the forest was silent, watching, waiting. The balance of power had shifted, and all of Lunaris would soon feel its consequences. In the quiet of Kale's chamber, Leora sat awake, her mind full of visions, glimpses of silver forests, glowing wolves and the moon itself. She understood now that her life had changed forever. The moon had chosen her. Kyle had trusted her, and the world would never be the same. But even as she settled into the strange calm of the night, she knew one truth clearly. The battle was far from over. Corin and those who opposed her would not rest, and in the darkness unseen eyes watched, waiting for the moment to strike. Cliffhanger ending. As Leora rested beside Kale, the candlelight flickered, and a shadow moved silently through the fortress. A voice, soft and cold, whispered in the darkness, "So the Moonblood has awakened, and the Alpha King will fall before she truly learns her power." The sky above Lunaris was dark, heavy with clouds, yet the moon shone bright and full, casting silver light over the fortress. Silence stretched through the halls, broken only by the occasional whisper of wind against stone. Inside, Kale Draven sat in the great hall, his dark cloak draped over his shoulders, eyes fixed on the horizon. Leora stood beside him, her red eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. She had trained for months under Kale's guidance, learning to control the moon's power that flowed through her veins. The seal of the Luna had fully awakened now, and with it her strength, her senses, and her understanding of the bond she shared with the Alpha King. But tonight, they faced their greatest challenge yet. The forces of rival packs, led by the relentless Beta General Corin, had gathered at the borders of the fortress, their eyes fixed on conquest. They wanted the moon-chosen Omega gone and the Alpha weakened. Kale's jaw tightened. "This is it," he said quietly yet firmly. "They will not stop until they take what they fear. We must stand together." Leora nodded, though her chest pounded with nervous anticipation. "I am ready," she said softly. "For the first time I feel ready." The gates of the fortress opened and the first wave of attackers charged. Wolves of every shape and size surged forward, teeth bared, claws flashing. The ground shook beneath their paws, snow flying like sparks of white fire. Kale roared, his voice carrying authority and command as he led his warriors into battle. Leora raised her hands, drawing upon the moon's energy within her. Silver light radiated outward, forming a protective barrier around the fortress. The attacking wolves faltered, sensing the power that now pulsed from her. Snow swirled in a blinding storm, reflecting the silver energy that seemed almost alive. The battle raged through the night. Kale fought fiercely, his movements a perfect blend of strength, strategy, and experience. He protected the pack, deflecting attacks and guiding warriors with precision. But despite his skill, Corin's forces were relentless, determined to overwhelm them. Leora moved through the battlefield with growing confidence. Each movement, each pulse of light pushed the attackers back. The moon's power responded to her emotions, fear, anger, courage, turning them into energy that could shield, strike, or heal. She healed the wounded, lifted the fallen, and pushed forward with Kale at her side. Then, as if the battle had reached its peak, Corin appeared, stepping from the shadows, his eyes blazing with fury. "So this is the moon's chosen," he sneered. "The Albino Omega who dares to defy us all." Leora's heart raced, but she stood tall. "I do not fear you," she said, her voice steady. "And you will not take this fortress nor harm those under my protection." Corin lunged at her with a roar, but Leora's hands glowed brighter than ever. Silver light surged outward, creating a wave that sent him stumbling backward. The moon's energy flowed through her fully now, responding to her will, her courage, and her desire to protect. Kyle moved beside her, his presence steady and unwavering. "Together," he said, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. Their bond, forged over months of trust, training, and shared danger, amplified the moon's power within Leora. The ground shook as their combined energy surged outward. Corin's forces faltered, unable to withstand the force of the Alpha and the moon-chosen Luna standing together. Wolves retreated, fear in their eyes, as the fortress remained unbroken, shining in silver light. But victory came at a cost. Corin, though weakened, lunged at Kale with a vicious attack. Kale caught him, their strength colliding in a clash of fury and skill. Leora's hands flared with energy, reaching toward Kale, willing him to hold, to endure. The battle raged, but finally, with a pulse of silver light, Leora unleashed the full power of the moon. It surrounded the battlefield, a wall of brilliance and force that disarmed the attackers without taking life unnecessarily. Corn fell to his knees, defeated, his ambition broken. Silence followed the storm. The snow settled, sparkling under the moonlight, the air clear and cold. Kyle leaned against a stone wall, breathing heavily, his dark eyes meeting Leora's. "You did it," he said, his voice full of awe. "You have mastered your power and saved us all." Leora's chest heaved, exhaustion and relief mingling. I could not have done it without you," she said softly. "You believed in me when no one else did." Kale stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her cheek. "You are stronger than you know," he said, "and now everyone will know it too. But more than that, you are not alone. Not ever." Outside, the forest was quiet, as if the world itself acknowledged the moment. Wolves howled softly in the distance, a song of victory and respect. The moon hung full and bright, reflecting in Leora's eyes, a reminder of the power she had embraced and the destiny she had claimed. As the night deepened, Leora and Kale walked to the highest tower of the fortress. They stood together, looking over the lands of Lunaris. The snow sparkled like silver fire, and the horizon glowed faintly with the first light of dawn. "You are not just the moon's chosen," Kyle said quietly. "You are the Luna of this pack and one day of this kingdom. Your strength, your courage, it will guide us all." Leora looked at him, her heart full of emotion. "And you," she whispered, "have been my strength. You have given me purpose, belief, and hope." Kale's lips curved into a small, rare smile. "We give each other strength," he said. "And together we will face whatever comes next." For a long moment they stood in silence, hands brushing, hearts beating in unison. The moonlight bathed them in silver, a blessing and a promise. But even in this quiet, victorious moment, Leora felt a whisper in the wind. The moon spoke not in words but in feeling, a sense of future trials, of challenges yet to come. And she understood. Her journey was far from over, yet she did not fear. She had survived poison, cruelty, mockery, and battle. She had awakened the moon's full power and protected those she loved. And now, with Kale by her side, she knew she could face anything. The dawn broke slowly, silver light merging with gold, casting a new glow over the fortress and forests. Leora's red eyes reflected both the moon and the sun, a symbol of her power, her bond, and her destiny. Kyle took her hand in his, holding it firmly. "The world will remember this night," he said. "Not for the battle, not for the storm, but for the bond that was forged, and the love that has grown." Leora squeezed his hand, her voice steady and full of conviction. "Then let the world remember us, not as enemies, not as victims, but as the Alpha and Luna who tamed the moon itself." The winds of Lunaris shifted, carrying the faint echoes of howls and whispers of the forest. The moon shone brighter, as if acknowledging her words, her strength, and her heart. Leora and Kale stood together, shadows intertwined, their bond unbroken, their destiny clear. For the first time in her life, Leora was not afraid of being different, of being marked, or of being judged. She was the Luna of Lunaris, chosen by the moon, guided by love, and strengthened by trust. And Kale Draven, the Alpha King, understood that his heart, his pack, and his destiny were forever bound to hers. Cliffhanger, final poetic line. The moon hung high over Lunaris, silver and eternal, and beneath its light, two figures stood united, the Alpha and his Luna, shadows of strength, love, and destiny, ready to face whatever the world would dare to bring next.